Have you ever felt like there's something more inside you, something powerful, unstoppable, waiting to rise, but somehow you just can't reach it? You wake up every day, going through the same motions, same routine, same silent frustration, and deep down you know, this isn't who you were meant to be. That's exactly what Tony Robbins calls the sleeping giant within. A version of you that's stronger, more focused, more alive, buried beneath years of habits, fears, and limitations you've accepted as normal. In Awaken the Giant Within, Robbins doesn't just give motivation. He gives a manual for transformation. He tells you, you already have all the power you need. But that power doesn't show up because most people never learn how to access it. You see, every human being is born with potential to love deeply, to achieve greatly, to change the world. But potential means nothing without activation. And that's where awareness begins. Tony's story itself proves this truth. He wasn't born rich, or confident, or successful. He grew up in chaos, poverty, fights, a broken home. At one point, he couldn't even afford food. Yet, in those moments of darkness, he made a decision: I won't live this way anymore. And that decision awakened something, a burning desire to understand what makes people live fully while others live in quiet desperation. Robbins realized, it's not circumstances that shape us, it's our decisions, our beliefs, and the emotional standards we accept for ourselves. He says, it is in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. Think about that. Every moment, you are one decision away from a totally different life, but most people never make that decision consciously. Instead, they drift. They react. They follow the same emotional patterns, tell themselves the same stories, repeat the same excuses, and call it life. But the truth is, it's not life holding them back. It's the limits they've set on what's possible. When you understand that your life is not controlled by fate, but by your own mental programming, that's when awakening begins. Robbins teaches that every single one of us has two invisible powers inside. The power to create, to decide, to act, to commit. The power to destroy, through doubt, fear, and inaction. The difference between the people who build empires and those who stay stuck is simple. They've learned to command their internal power instead of letting it control them. So the first step is awareness. Awareness that your thoughts are not random, they are trained. Your emotions are not accidents, they are conditioned responses. And your habits are not destiny, they are choices repeated. Tony's philosophy begins with this awakening, realizing that you are the source of your own experience. If your life feels small, it's not because the world is unfair, it's because the version of yourself you've been playing is smaller than who you really are. He says, the quality of your life is the quality of your emotions. And the quality of your emotions comes from what you focus on, what meaning you attach, and what you decide to do. So if you want to awaken your giant, start small. Start with one question. What am I tolerating in my life that I know I was born to change? Because that question alone can spark a revolution within you. That's how people quit addictions, build businesses, fix relationships, or rebuild their identity. They stop living in reaction and start living in creation. Imagine this: every day, you wake up not asking, what will happen to me today? But asking, what will I make happen today? That's the language of the giant within. Tony often says, the only limit to your impact is your imagination and commitment. Once you realize that, you stop waiting for motivation, because you become the source of it. When you look at the people who have awakened their inner power, from athletes to entrepreneurs, from artists to visionaries, they all share one thing in common. They stopped negotiating with their excuses. The awakening begins the moment you take full responsibility, not just for what's happened, but for what happens next. So let this be your reminder. There is a giant inside you, a version of yourself that doesn't just dream, but acts. That doesn't just survive, but leads. That doesn't seek permission, but creates direction. That giant is waiting. And this very moment, could be the one where you open your eyes. And finally, awaken. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize that their entire destiny, their future, their joy, their pain, all of it depends on one simple word: decision. Not luck, not talent, not the circumstances they were born into, but the decisions they make and the ones they avoid. Tony Robbins says, it is in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. Think about that. One decision can redefine everything. One choice can redirect the entire story of your life. But most people don't decide, they drift. They let the winds of life push them wherever the current goes. They hope things change. They wish for better days. But wishing is not deciding. Hope without action is just a slow form of dying. Look around, every great story you've ever heard begins with a decision. The moment when someone said, "Enough. I'm done being ordinary. I'm done living below my potential." That's where the transformation begins. Tony tells the story of how he used to wash dishes in a small apartment, barely making $40 a week. He had nothing, no resources, no guidance, no clear path. But he had one decision burning inside him: I will never live this way again. That decision didn't change his life overnight, but it changed his direction instantly. Because here's the truth: direction is destiny. The smallest shift in direction today can lead to a completely different destination a few years later. Your decisions are the steering wheel of your life. Every yes, every no, every not yet, it all compounds into the person you eventually become. But why do most people avoid making decisions? Because decisions mean responsibility. And responsibility means no one else to blame. It's easy to say, "I'm not successful because of my parents, because of the economy, because of bad luck." But the moment you decide, you claim ownership of your future, and that scares most people. Because when you own your power, you can no longer play the victim. Tony teaches that there are 3 decisions you're making every moment of your life, whether consciously or unconsciously. What to focus on, what it means, what to do about it. Focus creates feeling. Meaning creates belief. Action creates reality. And those 3 decisions, made every single second, are literally shaping your destiny in real time. For example, imagine 2 people facing the same situation. They lose their job. Person A decides to focus on the loss, the fear, the unfairness, the uncertainty. They give it the meaning, "This always happens to me. I'm not good enough." And so they decide to do nothing, to stay small, to wait. Person B faces the same event, but decides to focus on opportunity, the freedom to start fresh. They give it the meaning, "This is my chance to build something better." And they take bold action. Both people experienced the same event, but their decisions created 2 completely different destinies. That's the power Robbins wants you to understand. Your life doesn't change when circumstances change. It changes when you change what you decide to focus on, what meaning you attach, and what action you take. Every decision, no matter how small, builds momentum. When you decide to wake up early, to eat healthier, to learn one new skill, to control your emotions, you're shaping your future identity. And identity is destiny. Tony says, your decisions, not your conditions, determine your destiny. We all have stories about what's holding us back. But when you make a true decision, not a wish, not a maybe, but a decision, something inside you clicks. Your brain reorganizes itself around that command. You stop asking, "Can I?" and start asking, "How can I?" That's the difference between dreamers and doers. Dreamers wait for the right time. Doers decide that now is the right time, and then make it so. Every decision you've made, from the people you surround yourself with to the thoughts you allow into your mind, is like a vote for the person you're becoming. And if you don't like who you're becoming, you have the power to decide differently, right now. Tony often reminds people of one of the greatest truths of personal growth. A real decision is measured by the fact that you've taken new action. If there's no action, you haven't truly decided. So pause for a second. What are the decisions you've been postponing? The conversation you know you need to have. The project you keep delaying. The habit you've promised yourself you'd break someday. Someday isn't on the calendar. There's only now. And now is the birthplace of destiny. Every time you delay a decision, you surrender power. Every time you make one with clarity and courage, you reclaim it. And that's what Awaken the Giant Within is all about. Not waiting for a miracle, but deciding to become one. Because when you decide fully, when you say, no more excuses, no more waiting, no more halfway living, your mind, your emotions, your body, your entire life align behind that one command. That's the moment your destiny begins to shift. That's the moment you stop reacting to life and start creating it. So remember this. You are one decision away from a completely different reality. And the power to change your life is already in your hands. All you have to do is decide. Have you ever wondered why some people rise from nothing and build empires, while others, with all the talent in the world, stay stuck exactly where they are? It's not intelligence. It's not money. It's not luck. It's something far more invisible, far more powerful. It's belief. Tony Robbins calls belief the ultimate power that shapes every decision, every emotion, and every action in your life. Because beliefs act like the operating system of your mind. You don't see them, but they control everything you do. You see, every thought, every action you take, it all begins with one silent question. Do I believe I can? And that question decides everything. When you believe something is impossible, your mind doesn't even try. When you believe it's possible, your mind starts searching, creating, bending reality to find a way. That's the magic of belief. Think about it. The people who changed the world weren't the most gifted, they were the ones who believed when no one else did. The Wright brothers believed humans could fly when science laughed at them. Edison believed he could make light out of darkness. Nelson Mandela believed freedom was possible after 27 years in prison. Every great story of transformation begins with a belief that defies logic. But here's the twist. Beliefs are not facts. They're just perceptions you've repeated until you forgot they were choices. That's what Tony Robbins teaches, that most of our beliefs are built from the past, from experiences we misinterpreted as truth. Maybe you failed once and decided, I'm not good enough. Maybe someone rejected you, and you concluded, I'm not lovable. Maybe you lost money, and you believed, success isn't for people like me. And without realizing it, you built an invisible prison, one made not of walls, but of words. That's the tragedy of human potential. Not that we don't have power, but that we believe we don't. Tony says, beliefs have the power to create and the power to destroy. And if you want to awaken your giant within, you have to learn to break the beliefs that keep your power asleep. He explains that every belief has three parts, like a three-legged stool. The reference, something that happened to you. The interpretation, the meaning you gave it. The emotional proof, the feeling that makes it true. To change a belief, you don't erase your past, you change the meaning you've attached to it. Maybe you didn't fail. Maybe you learned what doesn't work. Maybe they didn't reject you. Maybe you were being redirected. Maybe it wasn't unfair. Maybe it was preparation. Change the meaning, and the emotion changes. Change the emotion, and the belief collapses. Tony often tells the story of how, early in his career, he was terrified to speak in public. He had energy, but also fear. Who am I to teach others? But then he realized, every teacher once started as a student who refused to stay silent. That shift, from, who am I, to why not me, changed everything. That's what belief does. It changes your identity. And identity is the most powerful belief of all. Because you will always act in a way that matches who you think you are. If you believe you're shy, you'll find proof every time you avoid speaking. If you believe you're unlucky, you'll notice every problem as confirmation. If you believe you're powerful, you'll start finding opportunities even in chaos. Your mind is like a loyal soldier, it fights for your beliefs, not against them. So if your beliefs are small, your life will shrink to fit them. But if your beliefs are limitless, your world expands to match. Tony says, the only thing keeping you from what you want is the story you keep telling yourself about why you can't have it. And that's exactly where transformation begins, when you change that story. Ask yourself, what are the stories I've been telling myself? That I'm too late, too old, not smart enough, not lucky enough. Every time you repeat those words, you strengthen the chains around your own potential. But the truth is, you can rewrite the script any moment you decide. Your past does not equal your future. What matters is not what happened to you, but what you decide to believe about it now. Because belief is a choice, a conscious decision to give power to a possibility. And that's what separates those who live fully from those who merely exist. There's a moment when you stop saying, I'll believe it when I see it, and start saying, I'll see it because I believe it. That's the switch. That's the awakening. When you truly believe, not with blind faith, but with conviction, the universe starts rearranging itself around that certainty. Opportunities appear. People show up. Your energy changes. And suddenly, the life that felt impossible starts unfolding in front of you. But belief isn't magic. It's direction. It's the foundation that fuels your actions, decisions, and habits. So how do you change beliefs? Tony gives a simple, powerful path. Identify the limiting belief. Challenge its truth. Ask, is this always true? Replace it with an empowering alternative. Condition it daily through action. Because a belief isn't built by words, it's built by repetition and experience. You have to prove your new belief through daily evidence. If you believe you're confident, act confidently. If you believe you're disciplined, show up when you don't feel like it. If you believe you're worthy, stop settling for less. The more you live it, the more it becomes who you are. So today, take a moment. Look at your life. Every success, every failure, every habit, all of it, is a reflection of what you've been believing. And if those beliefs no longer serve you, change them. Because you were not born with limits, you were taught them. And what's taught can be unlearned. You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not your fear. You are the creator of belief, and the builder of your destiny. So believe, not in the world as it is, but in the world as it can be. Believe, not in the person you were, but in the person you are becoming. Because belief is the spark that lights the fire of transformation. And once you ignite it, nothing, and no one, can put it out. There's one truth Tony Robbins repeats again and again. The quality of your life is the quality of your emotions. Think about that for a second. Not the amount of money you have. Not the titles after your name. Not the number of followers, possessions, or achievements. But how you feel every single day. Because emotion is what gives meaning to everything else. You can have everything and still feel empty. You can have nothing and still feel alive. It's not what happens to you, it's how you interpret it emotionally that decides whether you suffer or grow. Tony says that emotions are not random. They're messages. They are your internal compass, your guidance system, showing you where to look, what to change, what to appreciate, what to release. But most people don't listen. They label emotions as good or bad, trying to chase one and escape the other. And in doing so, they become prisoners of the very feelings that were meant to free them. Fear, anger, sadness, guilt, these aren't enemies. They are signals. They're saying, pay attention. Something needs your focus. For example, fear doesn't mean stop, it means prepare. Anger doesn't mean explode, it means your values are being challenged. Guilt doesn't mean you're broken, it means you're capable of empathy and higher standards. Every emotion has a purpose. Every feeling is feedback. But if you ignore or suppress your emotions, you lose control. You become reactive, a puppet pulled by invisible strings. One rude comment ruins your day. One failure destroys your confidence. One rejection freezes your courage. You stop living and start surviving. Tony Robbins teaches that emotional mastery begins when you take back that control. When you realize, I'm not my emotions, I'm the one who chooses what they mean. He says there are three forces that shape every emotion you feel. Together, they form what he calls the triad. Physiology, how you use your body. Focus, what you pay attention to. Language, the words you use to describe your experience. Change any one of these, and your emotion changes instantly. Let's start with physiology. Your body is the fastest way to shift your emotional state. You can't be depressed and stand tall, breathe deeply, and move with power. Likewise, you can't feel confident if your shoulders are slumped and your breathing is shallow. Your body is a reflection of your emotional world, but it's also the control panel. Change your posture, your breath, your movement, and you literally change your feelings. Tony's live events are built around this truth. He gets people to jump, move, shout, celebrate, because emotion lives in motion. That's not hype, it's neuroscience. Energy creates emotion. Emotion creates momentum. And momentum creates change. The second force is focus. Whatever you focus on, you feel. If you focus on what's missing, you'll feel lack. If you focus on what's unfair, you'll feel anger. If you focus on what you can control, you'll feel power. Focus is the lens through which you experience life, and most people never clean the lens. They stare at what they fear instead of what they can build. The third force is language. Words don't just describe emotion, they define it. Change your language, and you literally change how you feel. Instead of saying, "I'm devastated," say, "I'm a bit disappointed." Instead of, "I'm furious," say, "I'm a little frustrated." That small shift lowers the intensity of negative emotion and gives you space to respond intelligently. Language is emotional architecture. Build it wisely. Tony says emotional intelligence isn't about pretending to be positive all the time. It's about learning how to use every emotion as fuel. When you feel fear, use it to plan better. When you feel anger, use it to set boundaries. When you feel sadness, use it to connect deeply. When you feel gratitude, use it to expand joy. Because your emotions are not obstacles, they are energy. And energy, when directed, becomes power. But here's the trap most people fall into. They wait for their emotions to change before they take action. They say, "I'll start when I feel ready. I'll forgive when I feel like it. I'll take risks when I feel confident." But waiting for emotion is like waiting for the ocean to calm before you learn to swim. You'll wait forever. The secret Tony shares is this: you don't need to feel good to act. You act to feel good. Emotion follows motion. Action creates emotion, not the other way around. He also reminds us that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Pain is what life does to you. Suffering is what you do to yourself through the meanings you attach to that pain. And the moment you take charge of meaning, you take charge of your state. That's why Robbins teaches the art of emotional conditioning. Every day, you practice creating empowering emotions, gratitude, certainty, love, joy, until they become your natural state. Because when gratitude becomes your default emotion, life stops feeling like a fight and starts feeling like a gift. He tells audiences, if you want to change your life, change your state. And it's true, your emotional state determines your behavior determines your results, and your results reinforce your emotions. It's a loop. Change one part of the loop, and the whole system transforms. So if you wake up anxious, move your body. If you feel stuck, change your focus. If you feel hopeless, change your words. These tiny shifts are how emotional mastery begins. And when you start mastering emotion, something beautiful happens. You stop being reactive and start being creative. You stop waiting for the world to give you joy, you generate it yourself. You realize that happiness isn't something you chase. It's something you decide. Because at the end of the day, emotions are the colors of your life. You can live in grayscale, ruled by fear and doubt. Or you can paint your world in courage, passion, gratitude, and love. The choice, the brush, has always been in your hands. So the next time life shakes you, pause. Breathe. What is this emotion trying to teach me? Listen. Feel. And remember, you are not your emotions. You are the artist who uses them to create meaning. That is emotional freedom. That is power. That is how you awaken the giant within. How do you change your life? Instantly. Not in months. Not in years. But right here. Right now. Tony Robbins says, transformation doesn't have to take time. It only takes a moment of true decision, reinforced with the right associations. He calls this method Neuro-Associative Conditioning, or simply NAC. It's not magic. It's not motivation. It's the science of how your mind links pain and pleasure, and how those links silently control everything you do. Because human behavior is simple at its core. We do what we believe will bring us pleasure. We avoid what we believe will bring us pain. Every decision, every habit, every emotion, it's all a reflection of what your brain has learned to associate with pleasure and pain. If you've ever tried to change something, to quit smoking, lose weight, wake up early, stop procrastinating, and failed, it's not because you lacked discipline. It's because your mind still linked pleasure to the old behavior and pain to the new one. That's it. That's the real reason change feels hard. you're fighting your own conditioning. Tony explains it perfectly. Whatever you link pain to, you will avoid. Whatever you link pleasure to, you will move toward. To change your life, you must change what you link pain and pleasure to. Let's make that real. If you associate pleasure with scrolling endlessly on your phone, you'll keep doing it. If you associate pain with exercise, you'll avoid it. But if you flip that association, if you start linking pain to wasting time and pleasure to energy, strength, and control, your behavior changes instantly. That's the power of conditioning. Tony calls this the pain-pleasure principle, the driving force behind every human action. It's why people sabotage success, stay in toxic relationships, or settle for less. It's not logic holding them back. It's emotional conditioning. We can know something is bad for us and still do it. We can know what's right and still avoid it. Because emotion beats logic every time. That's why Robbins created NAC, to rewire the emotional associations running your life. He breaks it into 6 simple, powerful steps. Let's walk through them, not as theory, but as transformation. Step 1. Decide what you really want, and what's holding you back. Clarity is power. You can't hit a target you can't see. So write it down. What exactly do you want to change? What behavior or pattern must end? Don't say, I want to be better. Say, I want to stop procrastinating, or I want to be in control of my health. Be specific. Then, face the truth. What's been stopping you? Not surface excuses, but real emotional associations. Maybe you link comfort to laziness. Maybe you link rejection to trying. Maybe you link stress relief to food or escape. Identify the pattern, because you can't break what you don't see. Step 2. Get leverage. Link massive pain to the old behavior. This is where transformation begins. You must make the pain of not changing feel greater than the pain of changing. Tony says, change happens when staying the same becomes more painful than changing. So ask yourself, what will this cost me if I don't change? What will my life look like in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10? Who will I become if I keep repeating this? What will I lose? What will I destroy? See it, feel it, let it hurt. Because pain is not your enemy, it's your ally. It's the fire that burns away complacency. Step 3. Interrupt the pattern. Every habit, mental or physical, runs like a program. To change it, you have to break its rhythm. Tony uses physical anchors, clapping, shouting, yes, changing posture, or even switching environment. You need a shock that tells your brain, enough, I'm done. This interruption creates space for a new choice. Every time your brain tries to pull you back into the old pattern, interrupt it immediately. Snap your fingers, take a deep breath, or say out loud, not anymore. That single act breaks the loop. Step 4. Create a new, empowering alternative. You can't just stop a habit, you have to replace it with something better. The mind hates a vacuum. So decide, what will you do instead? If you stop emotional eating, what will give you comfort instead? Exercise, meditation, music, journaling? If you stop scrolling late at night, what will feed your mind instead? Reading, planning, gratitude? The new pattern must meet the same emotional need, but in a more empowering way. That's how change lasts, not through willpower, but by rewiring emotional rewards. Step 5. Condition the new pattern until it's automatic. This is where repetition creates identity. You have to condition your new associations again and again until your nervous system adopts them as truth. Tony says, repetition is the mother of skill. Every day you reinforce the new pattern, you build strength. Emotionally celebrate every small win. Attach pleasure to progress. Because the brain learns through intensity and repetition, not information. Think of it like this. If you repeat a new behavior with high emotion for 10 days straight, you've begun rewiring your brain. And once the brain accepts it as the new normal, change becomes effortless. Step 6. Reinforce it with emotion and gratitude. The final step is to lock in the new identity. Every time you live by your new pattern, stop and feel it. Say to yourself, this is who I am now. Emotionally reward the shift. Gratitude is the glue that seals transformation. When you thank yourself, truly, deeply, For choosing growth, you send your brain one powerful message. I am in control now. That's neuro-associative conditioning. It's not about fighting who you were, it's about reprogramming who you become. Tony's core message is this: you can change anything in your life, instantly, the moment you associate unbearable pain with the old and unbelievable pleasure with the new. Because ultimately, you are not your habits. You are the master of association, the sculptor of your own emotional wiring. Every breakthrough, every moment of discipline, every decision you've ever made that changed your life, it started because something inside you said, no more. And you linked that decision to action, forever. So if you want to change your life today, don't wait for willpower. Don't wait for perfect timing. Don't wait for motivation. Change what you link pain and pleasure to, and your habits will follow. Change your associations, and your destiny will follow. You can rewrite your entire life, not through force, but through focus. Not through pressure, but through purpose. Because once your emotions are rewired to align with your goals, success becomes your new instinct. And that's when you stop struggling to change, and start living as the change itself. At the end of it all, beyond success, beyond money, beyond achievement, what do you truly want? Not just what you want to get, but what you want to give. Because that's the question Tony Robbins asks every person who comes to him lost, confused, or unfulfilled. What is your ultimate purpose? Most people never stop to ask that. They chase goals, they chase approval, they chase comfort, but never clarity. And without clarity, life becomes motion without meaning. You're running, but you don't know where. You're busy, but you're not fulfilled. Tony says, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. You can build an empire and still feel empty inside if your life isn't connected to a deeper purpose. That's why the final step in awakening the giant within is not about power, it's about direction. It's about vision. Because purpose is the fire, and vision is the map. Without one, you drift. Without the other, you burn out. But when both align, your life becomes unstoppable. 1. The power of vision. Tony teaches that everything you see around you, every building, every invention, every piece of progress, was once a vision in someone's mind. The difference between dreamers and leaders is that leaders made their vision real. They felt it so strongly that the world had no choice but to bend to it. He says, people are not lazy. They simply have impotent goals, goals that don't inspire them. Most people aim too low and hit. They don't dream beyond survival. They've forgotten what it feels like to be truly excited about their own future. But when you create a vision so clear, so powerful that you can see it, feel it, taste it, your mind and body begin to move toward it automatically. That's not fantasy, that's focus. Because your brain is a goal-seeking machine. It always finds evidence for what you believe is true. So the question isn't, can I achieve my vision? The real question is, have I dared to define it clearly enough? What does your ideal life look like? What does it sound like? Who do you become in it? And more importantly, who benefits from it? Because true vision always extends beyond self. It's not just about what you achieve, it's about what you contribute. 2. The force of contribution. Tony says, the secret to living is giving. And that's not a motivational quote, it's psychology. When you focus only on yourself, your world shrinks to the size of your own problems. But when you live for something larger, your family, your community, your art, your purpose, your world expands. Contribution is the key that transforms achievement into fulfillment. It gives your life a heartbeat. It's why billionaires who give away everything still feel rich. It's why people who serve others often radiate joy, even with less. Because fulfillment doesn't come from accumulation, it comes from alignment. When your gifts serve a purpose greater than yourself, you stop chasing happiness and start living it. Tony tells a story of when he was young and broke, unable to afford food. One Thanksgiving, someone came to his door with a basket of groceries, a stranger who expected nothing in return. That moment changed him forever. He decided that one day, he'd feed millions. Today, through his Feeding America partnership, Tony has provided over 1 billion meals to people in need. That's the power of purpose. That's what happens when your pain becomes your mission. 3. Designing a life of meaning. Tony teaches that to truly awaken your giant, you must design a life that's not just successful, but meaningful. And meaning comes from 3 places: growth, contribution, and connection. Growth is progress, the feeling that you're evolving, expanding, becoming more. Contribution is impact, the sense that your life matters to others. Connection is love, the emotion that ties it all together. If you have all 3, you live in what Tony calls a beautiful state. If even one is missing, you start to feel lost. So design your days intentionally. Don't just fill your calendar. Fill your soul. Don't just chase outcomes. Chase alignment. Wake up and ask, what can I grow today? What can I give today? Who can I love today? Those 3 questions alone can change everything. 4. Living in a beautiful state. Tony often says, the only real success is to live in a beautiful state, no matter what. Because life will test you. Things will go wrong. People will disappoint you. Plans will fall apart. But your power is never in control. It's in response. You can't control the waves, but you can learn to surf them. That's emotional mastery. That's spiritual growth. And when you live in that state, where gratitude is stronger than fear and love is louder than pain, you stop needing life to be perfect. You start creating beauty in every moment, no matter what it brings. That's what the awakened giant looks like, not someone who never struggles, but someone who never stays down. 5. The legacy of purpose. In the end, your life will be measured not by what you had, but by what you gave. Not by how long you lived, but by how deeply you loved. Not by how high you climbed, but by how many you lifted on the way up. That's what Robbins teaches, that your ultimate purpose is to live fully, love deeply, and give endlessly. Because when your life becomes about more than yourself, your energy becomes limitless. Purpose gives pain meaning. Vision gives direction to chaos. And love gives strength to every step forward. So pause for a moment. Imagine standing at the end of your life, looking back. What would make you proud? What kind of person do you want to say you became? That's your vision. That's your purpose. That's your North Star. Tony says, you don't need to change your life. You need to decide what kind of life you want to live and commit to it with everything you are. So, awaken that giant within you. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Create it. Stop seeking power outside. It's already within you. Because inside you lives a force more powerful than fear, more persistent than pain, more infinite than limitation. It's your spirit, your will, your purpose. And once you awaken it, you don't just change your life. You change the lives of everyone you touch. Music swells, a mix of piano, strings, and heartbeat. The narrator's tone grows softer. You are the author of your destiny. You are the sculptor of your emotions. You are the creator of your beliefs. And you are the force that decides what this world will remember you for. So rise, decide, believe, feel, change, and live your purpose, fully, fiercely, freely. Because this is not just about awakening the giant within. It's about unleashing the greatness that was always meant to shine.